Every nice person has this one manipulative habit. They never raise their voice. They never ask for much. They're the sweetest people you know. But somehow, being around them feels heavy, like walking on emotional eggshells. It sounds harsh, but even the nicest people can use kindness as a mask. Not on purpose, not to harm, but to control in a way that looks innocent on the surface. So, what is this habit? Let's break it down. 1. The habit indirect control through guilt. The one manipulative habit almost every nice person shares and rarely admits is the subtle art of controlling others through guilt. Not by yelling, not by threatening, but by making people feel bad without saying a single aggressive word. It looks soft. It looks harmless. Sometimes it even looks like kindness. But underneath the surface, it is emotional pressure disguised as politeness. Here is how it works, instead of asking directly for what they want. Nice people drop hints. They sacrifice. They overextend. And then, when they do not receive the same in return, they shrink back. Get quiet. Seem disappointed. Maybe say something like, "It's fine. I didn't expect anything anyway." And suddenly you feel like the bad guy. Even though no one ever said it out loud, you know. You let them down. You disappointed the person who never asks for anything. And that guilt, it makes you act. You try to make up for it. You apologize. You overcorrect. Not because you were wrong, but because you feel responsible for their unspoken sadness. This is not villain behavior. This is fear in action. Fear of being rejected if they are too direct. Fear of hearing no. Fear of appearing needy, demanding, or God forbid selfish. So instead of expressing needs clearly, they try to earn what they want through self-erasure. Through endless giving. Through being so nice, no one could possibly say no to them. And when that does not work, when people fail to meet the expectations they never voiced, the internal narrative becomes, "I give so much and no one gives back." But that is not generosity. That is transactional martyrdom. The truly dangerous part is this. It often goes unnoticed even by the person doing it. They are not sitting in a corner plotting how to guilt trip their friends. They genuinely believe they are just being thoughtful, selfless, easy to be around. But the emotional weight their silence creates is real. It makes others walk on eggshells. It forces emotional debt into spaces that should be built on clarity and choice. And over time, relationships that once felt warm begin to feel like obligation. People start choosing their words more carefully, avoiding certain topics, and eventually avoiding the person altogether. Not because they do not care, but because they feel trapped by the invisible pressure of constant niceness. If you are reading this and thinking, "Wait, I do that," you are not alone. And you are not broken. You just learned probably a long time ago that asking directly for what you need was dangerous. So you stopped asking and started hinting, hoping someone would decode the signals, hoping someone would prove they care without you having to risk rejection. But here's the truth: people cannot give you what you never told them you wanted. And being kind does not mean erasing your voice. It means using it clearly, kindly, and without guilt as a backup plan. 2. Why nice people do this. The fear behind the smile. Let us make one thing clear. Most nice people who guilt others are not being malicious. They are being afraid. Deeply, quietly afraid of rejection, of abandonment, of conflict. Underneath the warm smiles and selfless gestures is often someone who learned early on that being direct equals being punished. That asking for what you want gets you labeled needy. That speaking up means pushing people away. So instead they overcorrect. They make themselves smaller, easier, more agreeable, less visible. All in the name of being easy to love. But really, it is fear disguised as kindness. A desperate attempt to stay safe in relationships by becoming impossible to dislike. And at first it works. Everyone loves the person who never causes trouble, who always says yes, who listens more than they speak. But what people do not realize is that under all that agreeableness is a quiet plea. Please don't leave me. Please like me enough to stay. And when that fear goes unspoken, it starts leaking out sideways. In the form of guilt trips, of sighs, of hurt silences and vague passive-aggressive phrases like, "No, it's fine. I'm just used to doing things alone." What they mean is, "I needed you. I just didn't know how to tell you." The real tragedy is that nice people often build relationships based on unspoken contracts. If I give enough, they'll eventually give back. If I love them hard enough, they'll finally see me. But these contracts were never agreed to. They exist only in the mind of the giver. And when reality does not match the fantasy, the dissonance hurts, not because others are cruel, but because the nice person was banking on silent reciprocity instead of honest conversation. This behavior often comes from childhood, where the only way to feel safe was to be perfect, invisible, or endlessly accommodating. Maybe you had a parent who only gave love when you were helpful, or a friend group where showing need made you the weak link. Over time you learned that being direct was dangerous, so you rewired yourself to survive through subtlety. But now as an adult, that wiring is no longer serving you. It is costing you connection. Because when people sense that they are being guilted even gently, even unconsciously, they stop feeling safe. They start protecting themselves from your pain instead of stepping toward it. And what you were trying so hard to avoid, disconnection, becomes inevitable. The antidote is not becoming rude. It is becoming honest. Letting the smile drop long enough to say, I want this. I need help. I was hurt by that. It is terrifying. But it is also the doorway to the thing you have always wanted most: real love, freely given, not earned through silence and self-sacrifice. 3. The manipulation is unintentional but still real. Here is where things get uncomfortable. Most nice people would never see themselves as manipulative. In fact, the very idea feels offensive. Me, I'd never guilt anyone. I just care too much. And that is part of the problem. Because what we do not realize is that manipulation does not always come in the form of control, yelling, or threats. Sometimes it wears a soft voice. Sometimes it shows up as silence, as I'm fine, as emotional weight that everyone around you can feel but no one is allowed to name. You do not need bad intentions to create pressure. You just need a pattern, a consistent emotional message that says, I won't ask for what I need, but I'll still expect you to feel responsible for it. And when people feel that pressure, even if it is wrapped in niceness, it changes how they behave. Suddenly, they are not acting freely anymore. They are managing your feelings, tiptoeing, reading between the lines, saying yes when they mean no just to avoid disappointing you. Because they can feel that your approval is fragile, that your niceness is conditional, not on purpose, but because you were never taught to separate kindness from control. And yes, this is all happening without you realizing it. That is the most insidious part. You are not trying to manipulate. You are trying to stay safe. But the people around you, they do not feel the fear underneath. They only feel the pressure. And over time, that pressure starts to corrode the foundation of your connection. It makes people question whether their love is real or just a repayment for an invisible emotional debt. The irony is cruel. In trying not to be a burden, you become heavy. In trying not to push people away, you start suffocating them. And no one knows how to say it because you are so nice. But here is the truth: when people feel guilt-tripped, even subtly, they begin to protect themselves, not from your anger, but from your pain. They start avoiding situations where they might disappoint you. They withdraw. And then you feel rejected, which just reinforces the cycle. Unintentional manipulation is still manipulation. Not because you are a bad person, but because intentions do not erase impact. You do not need to beat yourself up for this. You just need to notice it, see it, and begin practicing something radically different: directness. Real connection does not need guilt to survive. It needs clarity. It needs trust. It needs the courage to say what you mean without hoping someone will guess it for you. 4. What it sounds like and how to spot it in yourself. So how do you know if you are doing this? Because let us be honest, guilt-based manipulation in nice people rarely screams. It whispers. And it often sounds sweet, harmless, even noble. It hides in the pauses, in the tone, in the things you do not say, but hope others will pick up on. It sounds like, no worries, I figured you'd be too busy anyway. It's okay. I didn't really expect anything in return. I'm just that kind of person. I give without needing anything back. It is the sad smile, the quiet sigh, the delayed reply when you do not get the response you wanted. It is when you tell yourself, if they really cared, they'd know. It is when you get upset, not because someone said no, but because they did not anticipate what you needed. You never said it, but you hoped they would sense it, guess it, offer it freely. And when they don't, you feel betrayed. But the truth is, they never agreed to the test. This is how it works. You build relationships based on a silent rulebook only you can see. You give more than you have. You love hard but silently expect reciprocity. You avoid expressing needs, then feel hurt when no one meets them. You say things are fine when they are not, then quietly pull away when no one reads your mind. And that would be enough if the only one affected was you. But it is not. The people around you feel it too. The tension, the unspoken expectations. They start wondering, Did I do something wrong even when you never say a word? They feel guilty not because they messed up, but because they can sense you are disappointed in them, for something they never agreed to give. So how do you stop? You start by telling the truth not just to others, but to yourself. You ask, am I giving this freely, or am I hoping for something back? You pause before saying, it's okay, and ask yourself, is it actually okay? You notice when you are tempted to test someone instead of being vulnerable. The real you, the one behind the smile, behind the quiet, deserves to be heard, not decoded, not guessed at. And the people who truly care about you, they do not want you to suffer silently. They want to meet you in your honesty, even if it is messy, even if it is hard. Because that is where love lives, not in guilt, not in silence, but in the brave, terrifying act of saying, I need this. If this hits uncomfortably close, that is okay. You are not toxic. You are just scared to take up space. But here is the truth. Honesty is not rude. Needing something is not manipulation. You do not need to guilt people into loving you. You can just ask, directly. And the right ones. They will not leave. They will thank you for finally being real.